So today we're going to start our session discussing learning situations, getting some ideas, starting to brainstorm. Then at 9:30, we'll have Cristina, former master's student from this master's, who's going to tell us about how she uses literature to teach languages and from a multilingual perspective. And as you know, we're going to have another guest speaker I think in our next session, who will tell us about universal learning design. And the other speaker, that was Marta Fortes, instead of doing her talk live, she told me it's a kind of longer talk. So I told her to please pre-record it. That way we can use our time in class to talk some more about learning situations. Also, we're going to go back to hybrid teaching, and we've been told that we're going to have classes in the Faculty of Magisterio, because as you know, our current building, this Masters in Secondary building, is being used for primary schools that have been affected by the Dana storm, and they're having classes there in the building. So let me start sharing the screen and we can go ahead with learning situations. By the way, did you enjoy the talks? I felt like maybe 2 talks on one day was too much because you could not even take a break. I saw Carles that had his screen on and he was there nonstop. So it's important for you to have breaks. So I've learned now from the experience that we should only have one at a time, and if possible shorter, and if it's longer, then they can pre-record it. Sabela told me to please provide her with feedback on her talk, so please go to Aula Virtual and can you see my screen? Go to Aula Virtual and you'll find the link to provide her with feedback on her talk. Okay. So creating learning situations. Let's talk some more about this. We have already discussed LOMLOE, then we discussed the royal decrees, we have done the worksheet, we have some games that we still need to play, but maybe we can leave those for when we are face-to-face, just to check understanding in a more, hopefully, fun way. And today we embark on this journey of creating learning situations, learning the art and science of designing learning situations according to the framework provided by the LOMLOE, as well as the Royal Decree that specifies the curriculum. As you know, this approach reflects a shift in how we think about education. And that's why we have changed the name from learning, from didactic units to learning situations, focusing on student-centered learning, the development of competencies, and real-world applications. We need to challenge our students, and by doing so, we're also being challenged, right? We're challenged to go beyond traditional teaching methods and to create meaningful experiences that engage and empower our students. So why do we call didactic units learning situations now? Well, they are the cornerstone of the new educational model that is outlined by LOMLOE, that the curriculum is emphasized by and concretized by the royal decrees. And we mentioned some key aspects of it, right? So let's just go through all those concepts very quickly. We mentioned one of the key elements of LOMLOE is active participation. Students are not seen as passive listeners, and they're not even just students, right? With certain very, very unique and engaging learning situations, they become active agents of change, protagonists of the learning process, engaging with content in hands-on relevant ways, and also facing real-life challenges and contexts, right? We are also talking about competencies, right? A competence-based approach with the integration of competencies, bringing together both key competencies, specific competencies with their operational descriptors, promoting holistic development. The learning situations that we create need to be relevant to real life, not just realistic, but even real, with activities rooted in real-world contexts, helping students see the value of their learning beyond the classroom. So in today's lesson, we will cover the core principles of learning situations, how this competence-based learning takes place. We're going to explore strategies to design all learning situations in ways that are contextualized, meaningful, and inclusive for all learners. We're going to discuss LOMLOE's emphasis on interdisciplinarity. That is something we have also previously mentioned, and how to align learning situations with curricular objectives while also taking into account sustainable development goals. And we're also going to reflect on practical examples as well as brainstorm creative ways to apply this framework in secondary education. As you know, the ultimate goal is to prepare our students to face 21st century challenges, and in order to equip them with the appropriate tools and to help them develop the appropriate competencies, we need to focus on critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and adaptability. So by crafting these learning situations in dynamic and meaningful ways, we're contributing to building a generation of learners who are academically competent, but also socially and emotionally engaged and aware of their role in society and in creating a better society, a better tomorrow. Okay, so learning situations. Where can we learn about learning situations? In LOMLOE, we do need to go to Annex 3. And we see that learning situations are where students demonstrate that they have developed those competencies, that are capable of putting all those competencies into practice in order to apply what they know in practical ways. We have the definition of learning situations right there. Conjunto de situaciones, actuaciones y actividades que implican el despliegue y puesta en práctica por parte del alumnado de las competencias específicas y las competencias clave
Ana,
como garantía del desarrollo. ¿Ya?
are we supposed to see a PowerPoint or something?
Yeah, I think maybe my settings are not correct because yesterday...
yeah, we are only seeing the aula virtual.
Yeah, I think I made a mistake. Let me ask for technical help because I think since we are two teachers in this home, we are sharing the screen for online classes and maybe the settings have been changed. So let me stop sharing and let me ask for technical help very quick. Apologies about this. Okay, so I was going to say that after Cristina's talk, please don't leave because my idea is to create breakout rooms and to get updates, individual updates on how you're doing with your learning situations and also whether you need any help, any ideas, whatever it is. So there it is. So this is what I was talking about, right? Oh, wait. Yeah. The definition of learning situations that we just read again, and the different steps that we need to follow when creating our learning situations, right? So we have the definition. We know that learning situations refers to activities, context situations in which students are required to perform actions linked to specific and key competencies. They are determined there in LOMLOE, they are defined there, and they allow them to develop those competencies in an integrated work. So it's important that we focus on not just learning content, but also developing those competences by making students face situations where they will be required to put into practice all those competencies and with a holistic approach to learning, as we said. Okay, so what are the key steps when designing our learning situations? The first step is to read, highlight, underline, do as much as you need to do to make sure that you master LOMLOE as well as the royal decree specific to the Valencian community, right? The foundations of any effective learning situation should be in compliance with both the LOMLOE and the royal decrees that, as you know, establish and specify the curriculum. They are the legal frameworks that we follow, and they will help us ensure that our learning situation aligns with national and regional educational priorities. We, as teachers, it's part of our work, it's part of our job, like we always said, to be familiar with the legal framework, with regulations that effectively help us integrate the competencies, learning standards, evaluation criteria that are defined by this new law, this small law that modifies previous one, right? So we need to, first of all, define the key and specific competencies following this framework. We know that competencies refer to knowledge, skills, attitudes, values that students should develop. And we have also discussed the fact that effective learning situations must integrate key competencies that, as you know, are the broader cross-curricular abilities, such as digital literacy, critical thinking, social responsibility, as well as specific competencies. These are the subject-specific ones. They are subject-focused goals that detail what students should know and be able to do. So clearly defining those competencies ensures that our learning situation will be targeted, purposeful, and will contribute to holistic development. The second step is to contextualize our learning situation by establishing a real world context. As we know, learning will become more engaging and meaningful when we connect it to real life situations. And when learners are not just learners preparing an assignment that only the teacher is going to grade, but they actually can make a positive change. They can come up with ways to face 21st century challenges and to improve the situation in their community. So contextualization, therefore, involves designing learning situations that mirror authentic challenges or scenarios. We also mentioned triggers and how good teachers like Margarida are at coming up with triggers that really engage you from the start, that make you reflect, that set the tone, that inspire students from the very beginning and capture their attention, right? So this is what we need. We can think of all kinds of examples. For example, simulation of a marketplace to teach economics, and you're out there. I did not even know before that there's a stock market in Valencia, but there is. So you can go on an excursion to the stock market and discuss and have people explain how the stock market works, etc. That's for a math class, maybe economics class, but why not take it also to English, since we are following an interdisciplinary approach, right? We could also create community gardens to explore sustainability. This could be connected maybe to science projects, biology, etc. But why not to also integrate it in our English class? And I have a recent example that we can think of that we could bring into the foreign language classroom. So because of Dana Storm, the people that near where I live who used to deliver their eco baskets had the produce there, but they couldn't take it to the people, or the people in their area were affected by Dana, so they were not thinking of buying eco baskets, right? So all that produce was going to rot there. And then the solution that other friends that were also working in eco gardening, etc., came up with is, okay, we're going to organize the distribution of your eco baskets. We're going to contact the broader community. And then instead of paying €5, like people usually pay for these eco baskets on a weekly basis, we're going to ask them for a minimum of 15, or we're going to ask them to give a donation. And then we're going to help you since you have lost your van and you can't possibly do your bikes that you use for the delivery, we can deliver it for you. So why not take this into the classroom and see how students would organize the delivery, how they would contact the community, launch a campaign, explain the current situation, and make sure that they do it in a timely manner, right? Because that produce is going to rot very soon if it doesn't get to their final destination, right? So this is a real world, real life scenario connected to their community that everyone is affected by. And after all the depressing news that we hear, how empowering is it to be able to do something about it, to be able to help and to come up with initiatives that show solidarity and that improve how we live as a community. Step 3 would be to define clear, observable learning objectives. These should be specific. That means we need to focus on a specific outcome. They should be measurable. You need to ensure that your objectives can be evaluated through observable behaviors and products. We had some examples, even though we didn't have much time to discuss with Isabella, but well, you saw that she's brilliant. She always has plenty of ideas, and she showed examples of those assessment targets and also ways in which she does the follow-ups, and that she has tailor-made assessment for each of her students. We also need to make sure that our objectives are aligned or directly linked to the competencies and curriculum standards. We see that in LOMLOE an effort has been made to integrate everything and to link each and every single element. For example, if we are talking about math and we say students by the end of this project or sessions will understand fractions. Well, a possible objective that would be more aligned to Longloe would be students will solve real-world problems involving fractions by applying addition and subtraction. So in the English project that I just mentioned, the example that just mentioned, in which you are helping that group of farmers who are producing eco baskets, maybe they need to apply some math concepts to make sure that these people are going to raise the funds that they need to keep going. Maybe they have specific goal, such as buying a new van or a new bike for delivery, one of those big bikes, long tail, that has space to put the produce, etc. So you can link that. We have been talking about English and biology, but now we are also linking certain aspects with maths, right? Step 4 is to design activities for active learning. Active learning, as we know, involves student-centered approaches where students are the protagonists of their own learning processes, and we should promote participation, hands-on engagement. Activities should not just be individual, right? We need to set up different kinds of activities that involve group projects, debates, etc. We also need to foster problem solving and inquiry-based learning. It's an approach that we didn't see here in class, but that we've mentioned before, right? Through experiments, case studies, hands-on learning. And we need to utilize technology to enhance interactivity, for example, with gamification, digital simulations, etc., with the final goal to move beyond passive content delivery to a more dynamic, participatory, hands-on experience for students. Step 5 would be to plan for differentiation and inclusion. We've mentioned this several times. Sabela also mentioned how important it is to always take it into account. And we're quite lucky in this class that we are going to have an expert in universal design for learning giving us a talk. She said that she would do it in a kind of workshop style so that you could also participate and give your views. So I'm really looking forward to it. And when it's very important to tailor our activities to different learning styles, levels, and interests. So that's where universal design for learning should be taken into account, right? We need to design our materials and assessments in a way that they are accessible to all students, that nobody's left behind, that everyone, regardless of their level, can follow and can be aware of their own progresses and where they are and where they want to get by the end of the unit, the end of the project, whatever it is. We also need to make sure that we provide them with support, that we have support for inclusion. For example, with the proper suitable accommodations for students with disabilities or learning challenges or any kind of diversity, really, that will always be present in our classrooms. We know there's always going to be someone who needs specific accommodations. So we need to ensure that every student can engage with the learning situation meaningfully. She mentioned the example of dyspraxia, and she also said, you can write to me and I will give you examples of how I adapt my lessons to different students. So I think instead of writing to her yourselves, I can write on behalf of everyone and say, please send us all that information that you have based on your experience, because we know there's information out there that we can read, but it's always good to get first-hand experience or your own adaptations. I know myself also with dyspraxia, I had a student in this master's a few years ago, and we learned a lot also with her, the things that she told us that she needed, etc. So it's always really interesting to learn hands-on rather than in a more abstract way. Step 6 involves incorporating assessment strategies, something that was also quickly mentioned by her with the assessment targets that she showed us. And this connects with step 3, right? With having clear, measurable objectives that can be assessed, that can be measured in a way. So we know that there are two main kinds of assessment that we would need to integrate. The first one, as you know, is formative. For example, to provide ongoing feedback to our students by means of peer review, peer assessment, progress tracking, and basically anything that makes assessment more explicit so they can know the specific aspects that they need to target that could be different for each of them. So Sabela showed us all those exit tickets that she has, the checklist, where each student will include their own targets, the ones that they have achieved, the ones that they need to work on, and they will visualize the parts where they need help, also with the help of the assessment targets that make it quite visual and quite easy to follow, not just for teachers, but the idea is for assessment to be useful to students and for them to also be able to conduct their own assessment and to give us information about where they are, what they're struggling with, and where they want to get, right? We also need to include summative measures, of course, not just formative, but also summative assessment. For example, evaluating overall achievement through projects, through exams, something that requires longer term assessment, or we are assessing a longer period of time so that we know the evolution over that longer period of time. The use of diverse tools is very strongly recommended, right? From self-assessments to quizzes and different kinds of instruments for creating assessments that are fair, transparent, and aligned with the objectives. Step 7 involves reflection and adjustment of whatever needs to be readjusted. So after implementing the learning situation, we are not done, right? We need to keep reflecting, we need to be critical, we need to see what worked well, what could be improved or tweaked in a way that is more helpful to our students. And the things that we can evaluate would be effectiveness, of course. We can ask ourselves questions such as, were the objectives met? What challenges arose? What could we have done differently, etc. And we also need to gather student feedback, gather insights to identify strengths, areas for improvement, for them to also be empowered and capable of being critical and capable of determining their own learning goals and how they're achieving them. And the adjustment part would be to modify the learning situation based on those reflections, on the feedback, to enhance future iterations. So every time we implement the learning situation, it will be better because we will have adjusted certain aspects that were not so effective, right? It's an iterative process that ensures continuous improvement and adaptability to changing student needs or educational contexts. So this is a way to create a well-rounded, impactful learning situation, fostering engagement, inclusivity, and meaningful learning experiences. Okay, and there are 10 main rules that I got from this YouTuber that I recommended to you, Anna Esther Teacher, right? She has really useful pieces of advice, and she has her set of 10 main rules that she always follows when she creates learning situations. And it's basically, well, a way to summarize key aspects of l'anglais that we've also been discussing over and over again in our classes, right? The student needs to be an active agent in the learning process. So whatever task, activity that we prepare, we need to ask ourselves, is the student active? Does this activity or task require for the students to actually engage actively and hands-on in their learning process? And if it doesn't, maybe there are ways to change it and to make it more engaging, more interactive, and more active, while requiring students to be active. Sabela has so many examples. She only presented one of them, right? That she does. Like you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. Any boring activity that we tended to do in our English classes can be turned into something more appealing, more realistic, such as the example that she gave with her friend from Australia who just moved into the Valmiñor region in Galicia, and he wanted to have a specific, a house or a flat with specific characteristics, and was asking for advice about where to move in, what kinds of living arrangements could he find, etc. And that's way more engaging than just describe a random picture or just tell me how your house looks like, that students are sick and tired and doing over and over again in their English classes. This also connects with rule number 2, that learning situations should be based on the students' areas of interest. And that's why, in the case of AOE, Sabela told us how challenging it is because we have such a varied range of ages and interests, etc. But we need to try and see how we can find those connecting points so that you can interest everyone, maybe by making your topics open-ended and open enough that everyone can contribute and can take their learning and their experience to their own turf. Last year, I supervised a brilliant master's thesis on soundscapes, right? So what he would do, and he was also doing his internship in a Escuela oficial, right? So what he would do is that he would record different kinds of sounds that were part of Puerto de Sagunto, with all the factories, and he was also making references to smell. So in general, using different senses, and then he would bring them into the classroom, and there were people of different ages, And for people from different ages, maybe the sound of motorbikes could be something really annoying that we have in this village over and over. Whereas for the teenagers, they say, oh, that's the sound of freedom and adventures, and we love riding our motorbikes around. So he created a kind of intergenerational discussion that was really engaging, really appealing. And yeah, in this case, well, appealing to senses was really, really powerful. He did it in a way that they found to be very, very engaging. I hope I find it and share it with you. Well, actually, I think it's in my blog, so I will send you the link, and you can take a look at what he did, and if it inspires you and you want to do something similar. It was very well received by the board because it was something quite innovative, quite unique. Learning situations should promote creativity and autonomy. In the example that I gave you, well, it's a real life problem. These people, it's a pressing issue. These people from Castellar, that they have their produce there and nobody to buy it, and it's going to rot. What can we do? And also they're struggling economically. So it would really help if you could sell it, and then symbolically people are making a donation and getting something in exchange, rather than just making a random donation that sometimes you don't know who's going to get it and how they're going to use it. Well, now you know exactly who gets it, how they're going to use it, and you get a little something in exchange, right? The produce that otherwise will rot. The learning situations must integrate curricular elements. So we know how important it is to integrate the different elements of the curriculum, and how lucky we are in our English classes that we can even connect to elements from other classes and use them as topics, as inspiration to then cover all linguistic goals, right? And communicative goals in the classroom. They might involve a transfer of learning. We're going to also see examples of that, for example, when creating ads, or when doing many different things that involve transferring something that they're learning here into other contexts. They need to solve a problem of challenge, and that's why we take SDGs as inspiration, Sustainable Development Goals, and the challenges involved there. And they need to be contextualized and meaningful. So what better way than to take the local context into account, or even their high school context, things that they're doing, things that are traditional. If they always organize a race, solidarity race, like happens in some centers, well, why not involve them in organizing this whole race themselves from beginning to end? And that's an example of learning situations that you can also find in the website of Generalitat, right? That's and the suggested links. They need to progress from less complexity to more complexity. Maybe in this case, we can use the matrix that we saw for CLIL, how you combine real life goals and context and objectives with linguistic objectives, so that in both cases, the level increases progressively with the input +1 that Krashen told us about. We need to have clear and specific objectives too. I will give you an example of that in a minute. And we need to prepare students for the challenges of the 21st century. And they will feel in this way that their classes are not just about, getting assignments, handing them in, getting their grades, and bye-bye, but they're actually being equipped to face those 21st century challenges that are a reality, and they're going to be very challenging indeed for the future generations, right? Okay, so an example of number 1, the student is an active agent in the learning process. How about creating a vlog about their city, for which they would need to do research, they would need to prepare a script, record videos, edit that content. We see an example of multiliteracies here, and that will require for them to practice speaking, writing, listening in authentic context, and something that is really, really motivating is for them to have an authentic audience, to know that it's not just the teacher who's going to see their productions, but potentially the whole wide world out there that will access their content through the World Wide Web. Or if they don't want to make it so broad, their audience could be at least people in their community, or if you want to narrow it down even more, at least people in their high school, and this could be some kind of competition that the most interesting one could receive some awards, etc. So they could do it however they wanted to, and they're also developing digital skills that are important in law, etc. So we see interdisciplinarity also in this kind of example that requires their active involvement in the learning process. For number 2, Well, we would need to see the way Sabela did very well to maybe survey them beforehand, or if they are our class, we already know them, we know their areas of interest, etc. And based on that, we can create learning situations or come up with activities, etc. Also depending also on the calendar. So if the Eurovision contest is around the corner, we can take advantage and have an activity that involves connecting also with being active, not just listening to a song and filling the gaps, that it's something they're just sick and tired of doing very often. We can involve them in the songwriting process. Again, there's multiliteracies here. They are exposed to a specific genre, such as songs, right? And before doing that, before even writing, they also need to analyze songs in English. We've seen master theses with about songs, about the use of music. Sometimes they had to analyze sexism in songs, right? And you know that and they become aware that some songs, even classics nowadays, such as "Every Breath You Take" by the Police, is actually could be interpreted as a really controlling man that is there. Every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you. How scary is that? This is about a stalker, right? And I've been singing this song for so long, and then I only by analyzing the lyrics I realized that. And now, well, with reggaeton, you have a gold mine of songs that you can analyze in terms of sexism, um, violence, etc., and make them aware that well, many topics can be discussed through songs. So you can analyze the songs, identify the things, specific vocabulary and grammar that maybe could be linked to the curricular elements that you're covering at that specific time. And then the active step would be, or even more active step would be, to write their own songs, their own lyrics, and even performing them using their creativity and improving language learning. This is something that I've done with my students, first year students, the degree, and we were participating in a virtual exchange with students from university in California. So they use the "California knows how to party," but they had to change the lyrics, kind of saying goodbye to the students, and they loved it. It was a kind of very short farewell clip, and students in California really loved their creativity and how they had come up with this idea of writing a song, changing the lyrics. To say goodbye to them. So they had to use their creativity and they improved their language skills. They got out of their comfort zone. In this case, they used it in a real world situation with a real audience, etc. But you also have the example there connected to Eurovision, in which they would have to also work and participate in a kind of Eurovision song contest, or it could be something about a high school context. I remember I was a scout group, also a member of a scout group as a kid, and we had the Sant Jordi, and then there's a kind of like a song competition. So each scout group gets involved in the songwriting process, etc. So you can also link it to that. I mean, creativity is endless. You can find many different ways based on your own context and your students' interests and preferences. For number 3, learning situations that promote creativity and autonomy. Someone has raised. Bea, you want to say something?
Sorry,
I was
interrupt.
to the chat in a while. I see that some people have written, but yeah, you raise your hand. Go ahead.
Can I quickly ask you, where can we find this PowerPoint on the Aula Virtual? Because I'm going into the week 8, into all the parts, but I cannot see these slides shared with us.
Oh, so maybe I didn't share them yet. In that case, thanks for reminding me, and I'll be sure to upload them there. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Slides are also there, and I encourage you to please take a look at them, because she did them in the same way that I was doing, that you clicked and you could go back and forth. That's a very multiliteracy approach. So you can go back and forth and explore all the topics that we didn't have time to cover when we were choosing the different numbers. You can go there, you click, and you'll find the different examples that she uses for her classes. But
Perfect. Thank you so much.
This one's already there, and I'll be sure to also upload this PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so the example that we have for promoting creativity and autonomy, pretty much any active methodologies and activities would promote this in a certain sense. Fiction writing, for example, and again, I supervised a couple of years ago a brilliant master's thesis that blew my mind from a cosplay fan. Do you know what cosplay is?
Yes.
thing. What is it, Bea, since you have your microphone on?
When you dress up as a fictional character, normally it happens around the world of Marvel, DC, manga, anime, and all of that. There are congressions and everything that people go to.
Exactly. So I remember that I had her as a master student, and I remember from her personal profile card that was something that had caught my eye, that she was a cosplay fan and she knew how to make her own costumes and she had participated in all those conventions. So she came to me and she had no idea what she wanted to do for her master's. I said, oh, you have to do something involving cosplay. And she did it, and it was brilliant. Her students absolutely loved it. Basically you can, and she worked on different skills, different stages. Multicultural was also there, right? They had to design their own fictional character. And somebody says, Mario, they also act like the characters that they are cosplaying. True. So there's drama, there's so many different competencies and genres and knowledge involved in cosplaying, right? So they had to design a fictional character, write a song about them in this case, but it could be something else, working independently or in groups, designing the character's personality, background, experiences, integrating narrative tenses, descriptive language. I think she also did, how is that thing called? When you write fiction, or you take a character from fiction, but you take it on the internet and people write sequels and things and they change the character.
Fanfic.
Fiction. She also did fanfic. Yeah. So yeah, because she also noticed that there are many characters out there that they don't portray real life, or they don't portray students as they are in their identities, personalities, if they are like non-binary or any kind of diversity is not always present in those characters that they like. So they spice it up a little bit in their fan fictions. So she also did that to show more diversity, to engage students, because they could be active in who these characters were, how they behaved, etc. And then on top of everything, cosplaying and dressing up as those characters. She sent me the pictures, and well, it's amazing what they managed to do when cosplaying. So that was a really, really great idea that if you're interested, maybe you can also explore. The learning situation must integrate curricular elements. So in this case, we have also many contexts when we have knowing goods, students that appear like last week already in my daughter's class, for example, there was a new student, also with Storm, many temporary students that are in new, number 4, yeah, that are in new schools, at least temporarily. So how about encouraging students to make a newcomer survival guide, helping newcomers survive their first weeks at school, helping them feel welcome. Maybe someone could be a kind of mentor, or we can have the big brother, big sister approach, in which one of them, each student is in charge of a specific knowing good, a specific newcomer who's in the school, and make sure that they're integrated, takes care of them, etc. And you can even organize some kind of scavenger hunt around taking them outside of the classroom, around the school, and you will help newcomers get to know their surroundings in the school, being taken to a tour, getting keys in different places. That way they will go to the menjador and they will get keys from the people, the cooks that work there, and they will go to Jefatura de Estudios and they will also get a key there, and they won't see the headmaster as, oh, this person was very distant, but just like another teacher who's there, who's having fun with them, and they will get to know the spaces, the people in a more, in a very ludic way, in a non-threatening way, etc. And if there are other languages involved, obviously, there are many things that you can develop from a linguistic perspective, right? You can integrate English, but also maybe other languages, and get those students involved. So they're not just, oh, the poor newcomers that we're helping. No, they're actually producing materials themselves, or someone who's already in the school, who speaks the language of those newcomers, can also help integrate, produce those things, and they're empowered. They feel that their identities and background languages are valuable and helpful in this case. You can also link this to social studies, including information about the school's culture, local traditions, or inviting those newcomers to also share part of their traditions, wherever they want to share. Technology has a role to play here with graphic design tools to create a final guide so they can have a final written output out of the whole experience that could be mainly focusing on oral language, but then you can also practice writing. And it's not just an approach that will develop multiple competencies simultaneously. Number 5 would be to make sure that you involve a transfer of learning. This is the example that I was referring to, in this case, an ad. And you could also practice pitching persuasive language by creating a pitch step by step or a kind of sales page or ad. And they know they have to identify the problem, set a value proposition, share a story, so there's storytelling, multiliteracies, again, offer a solution, show social proof, maybe testimonials, either real or just fake, but at least they're practicing language, and end with a call to action, persuasive language. You can practice imperatives here, etc. We see then that they're learning persuasive writing techniques and creating advertisements. So they're also using their creativity for imaginary products, but could be real products. I mean, depending on how you do it. And you can have a class that is about pitching, presenting their pitches, their ads, practicing public speaking, or it could be in the form of a digital story, some kind of recording. There are many different ways. Again, they have a potential authentic audience, and they're focusing on specific genres and practicing with specific linguistic forms and tenses in this case too. Step 6. Solve a problem or challenge. Well, this is basic from pretty much all learning situations. The inspectors, when they came last year to give us their talk, they said that they highly recommend that we take a challenge connected to Sustainable Development Goals, and we work from there. And a very typical SDG or very typical SDGs are the ones that connect with protecting the environment, right? Life on land, life on water, and the one about sustainability, sustainable cities, etc. So we could also link to a real activity that is taking place in which students are invited to participate in the European Parliament. I have had also in the past people doing their internships in schools where they were taking part in this activity, right? So they need to prepare for those that European Student Assembly. They're going to be chosen to represent, and maybe if they can't go there in person, at least they're going to participate online with students from all over Europe. They need to organize a debate on environmental issues, for example, banning plastic and coming up with solutions and alternatives to plastic. And that would involve research. They also need to prepare arguments, practice persuasive language, again, to defend their positions, right? To participate in this debate. And it could be a competition, it could be that then the final prize is to actually implement some of the solutions that they proposed. So again, that's potentially quite engaging, motivating, and empowering to students to know that they're making a change at the European level, working together with other European students from different countries that are just like them, their age, and with the same worries and the same ideas and creativity in order to face 21st century challenges, in this case, connected to sustainability and banning plastics and finding alternatives. Step 7 has to do with, or tip number 7, or main rule number 7 has to do with contextualizing your learning situation and making sure that it's meaningful. In this case, we have the example of a travel guide, or you could also make an inclusive travel guide. You're going to have a group of students with different kinds of impairments, visual impairments or hearing impairments, and you need to make sure that you create an accessible experience, first of all. So you need to come up with places that they can go. If you go on a museum visit and they can't see, well, you need to make sure that if they're blind, they can go to a museum and touch things like prototypes or smaller sculptures, so that they get an idea of the big sculpture that is exhibited there, etc. Or if they have, again, a visual impairment, then maybe the travel guide that says everything orally, etc. And then they prepare from their own context. Could be Valencia, could be their own towns, villages where they live. They would need to maybe write and present a guide for those tourists, but could be students like them, whatever we want to do to make it more meaningful, connecting their language learning to real life, real communicative needs when they organize this tour, this inclusive tour, describing landmarks in different ways with different modes, not just the typical one of visual, right? So of visual sense, giving directions, recommending activities, especially adapted activities, etc. Rule number 8 has to do with a situation that needs to progress from less complexity to more complexity. And again, we have an example like the ones that Sabella does all the time, getting a kind of super boring topic that we tend to do over and over again in English classes and see how we can make it a bit less boring, a bit more relevant to our students. For example, instead of just working on routines and having a little cartoon there that says, oh, this is Pepito. Pepito wakes up at 7 every day. He brushes his teeth. It's super boring on that scale of from 8 to 10. How boring is this? You would probably score very high. Well, you can turn it into an interview. They need to go out there. Maybe they're English people living in their area, those retired people that have plenty of time. And you contact them beforehand and say, I'm going to send students, and they're going to interview you about your daily routine. And maybe if you talk to them beforehand, please make sure that you practice these things that we are covering in the class, making sure that you tell them that you brush your teeth, that then you go walk your dog, whatever it is. Or if you want to leave it open, well, just tell them the truth of what you do, your daily routines, and then we will connect it to the curricular contents, etc. So in this case, they will be learning vocabulary and phrases for daily routines with real people in a real life context. They could also be required to write a short description of their own routine and also go there and share it again in a real life context with real speakers of the language. And if they conduct interviews either with classmates or with those people like I mentioned, retired people, retired British people, they can then come back to the classroom and report their findings and say, hey, I met Margaret. Margaret lives here and I went to interview her and we took a selfie. Here it is. And she told me this and that, or I even recorded the interview if she gave you permission, and here's the recording, whatever it is. Therefore, practicing speaking, listening, incrementally and in a way that it's probably more relevant and more motivating. They have had to get out of their comfort zone to do so, right? And rule number 9, you need to have clear and specific objectives. So with anything, really, any activity that you do, we have the example of storytelling that I always like using in my classes, and how you can use different cards, you can use Dixit. There are many different ways. Isabella also gave us the idea of Tiger that has all those story cubes and materials that you can use. And it's important that you specify and you know which goals you're going to have, because one thing is you will use it as a kind of game, very open-ended without any goals in mind. And the other thing is if you're going to structure very specifically, for example, okay, I'm going to adapt this game to make sure that students use the past simple, past continuous tenses to narrate a personal story. I can even make it explicit. Remember, you need to use these tenses in this way with specific goals that focus the lesson, that ensure alignment, in this case, with the grammar content, speaking competencies, whatever it is. It's important to always have those goals. And with any little thing, you can make the most out of it as long as it's well structured and well thought out beforehand. And finally, and I think perfect timing because Cristina must be already waiting, is that learning situations must prepare students for the challenges of the 21st century, right? We have an example of a UN conference, a bit similar to the example of the European Parliament, the European Assembly, right? And this is also a real activity that happens where students are required to go there as representatives of their age group, and they can participate in a United Nations conference on global issues, again, probably online. I don't think they're going to go to the headquarters in New York, but they're also, as you know, headquarters of UN and different elements, even in Valencia, right? So they could go there and maybe talk to UN workers that are out there. One of my best friends is actually a Spanish teacher, and she teaches Spanish to UN workers, and they can participate in. So I would have access potentially to these international expats, super interesting, smart people, and maybe the students could be sent there and talk about climate change, gender equality, access to education for all, They would be representing different countries, especially if you have a lot of diversity in your classes. They would research their assignation stance on the issue, prepare speeches, engage in debates, do negotiations in English, etc. And well, this kind of activity would help us develop critical thinking, public speaking, teamwork, adaptability, cultural awareness, and we can also practice specific language skills based on our objectives, based on our curricular elements, such as authentic 21st century skills, but also specific linguistic aspects that we want to practice in our classes. We also have different output ideas for your learning situations. Some of them we mentioned, some of them we didn't mention, but basically another thing that the inspectors told us in their talk last year was that students are quite overwhelmed and a bit bored, to be honest, with, now that we're doing learning situations, we always need to give a presentation at the end of each project in each subject. Where presentations nonstop. So we're going to the other extreme, right? Back in my day, we never did presentations, we didn't practice speaking, but now it's the opposite. They're just overwhelmed with presentations. So we can go beyond presentations, and there are other things that our students can do, such as we mentioned the vlog, podcast, or they can create a leaflet. They can even have their own TV show or radio show with a podcast. Again, we can have an interactive notebooks. Those ones are really amazing. Some students are so creative and doing so well. And there are notebooks out there that already have kind of templates that they can use, or they can also find them online. Infographics are getting more and more popular every day. They can prepare their own magazine. Advertising campaigns that we mentioned, blog that we also mentioned, a mind map that they can do in a more creative way, theater play or role playing, cosplaying as an example of that. So there are many different ways. So you are kindly encouraged to go beyond the presentation, give a presentation using Prezi, PowerPoint, Canva, and see if they can also explore these other outlets to produce their outputs, right? Well, the next step was to look at our table, but I'm not sure if Cristina is there already. Cristina, are you there? I don't know if she's on our people here. Let's text her. She is. So basically, I wanted to look at the different components that we have in our template to make sure that they are clear and maybe provide an example, right? Okay, there. Okay, so where Cristina answers, maybe we can start advancing this a little bit. So we have, first of all, a title and a general goal. And please don't make the common mistake of giving a very boring title. You can go to our sustainable future, create an advertisement campaign, but don't go to an advertisement campaign for sustainable future. That could be maybe too boring. Try to make it specific, try to make it engaging from the very beginning. As a general goal, well, we can say we want to improve students' English communication skills, and then you need to be specific. Well, we want to improve listening, speaking, reading, writing by creating a persuasive advertising campaign for a fictional eco-friendly product. The learning situation develops language competencies while raising awareness about sustainability and fostering creativity, collaboration, and problem solving. So the more specific you are, the easier it will be then to connect everything, to measure at the end whether you have accomplished your goals, and to make sure that everything is well connected and well rounded. Then we have the introduction, contextualization, right? We could say that the learning situation addresses real-world communication by engaging students in a meaningful task. In this case, the task of creating and presenting an advertisement campaign, where students are required to role play as members of a marketing team tasked with promoting a sustainable product. The context is relevant to their lives as consumers, as global citizens. You can even make it more relevant if you connect with something of their environment, right? And they're also fostering their competencies in English, aligning with the goals of LOMLOE, that include emphasizing real-life applications, active learning, cross-disciplinary competencies, while integrating cultural and societal issues, for example, climate change, sustainability, to motivate students and ensure meaningful learning. Then for student goals, you need to be very, very specific. This is also something important. Cristina, are you there? I don't know if Cristina Vargas is there already. She says she's sharing her PowerPoint with me. Yes, you shared it with me so I can use it, but I want to know if you are there, Cristina. Okay, so as learning goals, when Cristina responds, we can say students will 1. Use persuasive language to write slogans, scripts, and promotional content. 2. Develop oral communication skills by presenting their campaign in English. 3. Collaborate effectively in groups to design creative advertising materials. 4. Expand vocabulary related to sustainability, advertising, and products. And 5. Apply digital tools to create visuals and other media content of the campaign while improving listening skills by analyzing real-life advertisements and identifying persuasive techniques. Let's move on a bit so that you can see the different examples. I think we've been stuck in the same slide. Okay. Let's see what Cristina is saying. I might need to give her a call if she's not here, or I may need to share the link again with her. Okay, so we have our learning goals, curricular elements involved, and key competencies. We don't need to be creative here, right? We know that those ones are already given for us. So we can have linguistic communication competence, CLC, digital competence, CD, learning to learn, double L, social and civic competence, CSC, entrepreneurial competence, SIEE, sorry. And then for specific competencies, well, those are, as we said, the ones that are specifically linked to our subject, that are not broader, not connected necessarily with the other subjects. In our case with English, well, develop and use strategies for oral and written interaction, understand and produce multimodal texts in real-world contexts, and express opinions, arguments, and ideas on global issues. We have a grammar and language focus, so we can make it as specific, and we should make it as specific as possible with, for example, the use of modal verbs, should or must, for recommendations, adjectives and persuasive language for describing, promoting products, etc., and imperatives for direct communication. As we say, persuasive language and the call to action that we would include at the end of our ads or pitches. In terms of vocabulary focus, we can focus on sustainability with vocabulary such as eco-friendly, renewable, carbon footprint, depending on their level, right? And also connected to advertising, campaign, target audience, slogan. Then the skills would be listening, speaking, reading, and writing in this case, but we can also narrow it down to make sure that it's realistic and that we don't want to practice too many things at the same time. Cristina, okay, perfect. So like I said, we will finish with this after Cristina's talk, and then if we have time, I will create the breakout rooms to start getting updates on how each group is doing. But let me just close this for now so that we can hear Cristina's brilliant ideas. She's super, super creative, always has great ideas. So I'm pretty sure she's going to bring something really inspiring for us. Okay, this thing's PowerPoint. Cristina, did you modify your PowerPoint or can I share the one that you sent me last time?
As you know me, morning everyone, as you know me, I'm modifying everything always. So I don't know what you have, the last one. If it's the one with I made with Google, yes, I've modified.
You've modified
I put
it.
I updated the voices of my students.
So if it's okay, we're going to break the protocol a little bit and you can introduce yourself instead of me introducing yourself. That way you give me time to...
Right, to take the new one, right? Okay. So, okay, shall I start?
Yeah, please.
Hi, Anna, by the way. Nice to see you. Well, everyone, good morning. My name is Cristina Vargas. I am now a teacher. I'm teaching this year. I'm teaching in an adults school, in a public adults school. More than anything, it's Spanish as a foreign language for people who came from abroad. My students are just arriving now in class, but they are super respectful, so they just stay there in silence till we finish. I'm teaching to them Spanish, such as you can teach English to students in secondary or upper classes. So it's interesting to see how people need to learn a language, and then they put the best for learning the language. So as I teach to adults, it's a bit different, but the way it's the same. I'm using just activities which can be very interesting for them, so they feel engaged and they don't feel like out of the class. So they can feel all right in the classes independently from their ages, religions, backwards, countries where they come from. Because most of the students I have this year, I must say, they came fleeing from war, right? I've got a lot of people from Ukraine, Russia, Iran. So there are people that flee from war and they are trying to fit here in Spain, but they don't have our language. So we use English in classes for common tool for us to understand ourselves. Can you see me?
Now I'm sharing your presentation, hopefully.
Okay. So you can listen to me, right? Can you listen to me? Yeah.
Move this to here. I need to move my browser is this the screen that I'm sharing? Do you see now Cristina's presentation? And do you see it now full screen?
I don't see it full screen. Can you?
No, I can only see the window with all the different
I think I'm not showing the right one.
archivos.
Let me try again. Maybe I need to share the first stop sharing because I have this same problem earlier today. I think it should be the first screen. I think I'm sharing through tabs rather than through windows rather than. Can you say full presentation mode?
Yes.
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for next time I have this.
Actually, I had a second presentation because, when I have it already done, I always like to do it better or more cute. So I have another one in Canva, but I prefer this one because in this one I have the voices of my students, and in the other one I hadn't time enough for doing. If you want to see the other one later, I just can share it with you, so you can share it with your students as well. Well, so talking about my students, okay, the fact is I am not teaching English this year, but I am teaching Spanish as a foreign language, and I am using English as a common thread for understanding everyone in class. I try to include in all my classes multilingualism as a tool for everyone to feel included and to feel part of it. Because my classes seem like the NUA, the NUO, because I have people from everywhere that you can imagine, everywhere, from Iran to, I don't know, United States. I've got some English people. I've got people from every country you can imagine. And it's quite difficult, especially for people who are from countries which actually they are in war. They've been in war the last years, like Russia and Ukraine, and people from those surroundings, other countries which are involved as well. So for them, it's quite difficult to be here, to fit in. And they are arriving. And for them, it's difficult to feel secure and free to learn in this atmosphere where they have to share classes with people who in their countries, they could be enemies. So in here, we are not. In here, we are just people trying to learn languages and to share through languages our common experiences and to feel free to express ourselves, to feel as much communicative as we can, learn, and they share with me and with other classes. I made a lot of games and things to make them feel secure and engaged. So through games, gamification, and through using multiculturality, all the backgrounds, I made it feel like we are all a big family. So we learn a lot and we love, and we are just like if all of us were brothers and sisters here. Though I've got here every ages. So I have mummies and grandpas and whatever you can imagine. So this is great. It's great. And yes, I'm teaching Spanish. nor English this year. I was teaching English here last year, but this year I am not teaching English. I'm just teaching science and geography, and this Spanish for foreign learners. And yeah, we use all the backgrounds they have, because I think it's the most powerful and enriching tool that we can find to have so much interesting and multicultural basis to just open our minds and use it in the classes. So we work together on the curriculum. We work together on learning the communicative objectives we have and to practice all the skills, but through the tools we already have, which is our background, our stories, our families, our countries, and then we can find things which are just in common, independently from they are, not depending on where they come from or when or why or what is their actual situation. When they enter the class, they are just part of the class. So they feel so good as students. They are so happy. You can see that in their faces. They are very interested in learning language because they need it for improving their jobs, whatever, which I think it's and to feel part of the community here in Spain. So I think that is the point. That's the trigger or the point to for us to communicate to our students, whatever in secondary school or the language is needed. It's something you're going to use always. And if you feel it is going to be your most powerful tool to feel part of the community, to change things, then you feel it like it's necessary to learn it. And for students, it tends to be quite easier to starting learning English from scratch or to improve their level, because they see others are exactly in the same place, they can put themselves in others, in our shoes and see the situation. And I don't know, it's for a teacher to be in this part, in my place, it's just amazing, because I'm changing things. Actually, they change their faces from the first days of classes to now that we have made this project all together that I'm going to share with you. They change a lot. At the beginning, for example, people from Russia just sat together with people from Russia, and people from Ukraine, they are only sat together with people from Ukraine. Iran people, I don't know, from Syria, from Iran, from other people from every part of China. Chinese people, only sit with Chinese people. Then so it seemed like they're a meeting on the United Nations. But then, as I always try to move and do activities to mix them up, and just by luck, I put numbers, in a box, or I put please, or I put color sticks. Yeah, they're just arriving. Or I put color sticks in pots, or I just say I give numbers for them and then group them by surprise and things like that. So they have been meeting all together. They've been gathering with different people, and just in 1 month, in 4 or 5 classes, they feel free to speak all the time with everyone, and they feel like students. They're partners, and they forget absolutely where they come from, or if they have to speak about that, they just do it like in a natural way, and not having any kind of bad ideas about that, or remorse, or I don't know. They just feel free to be themselves here, so they learn more effectively, which is at the end, that's my point, for them to make them learn more effectively, more communicative, to have this background, this multicultural background as a tool. So yeah, for this project, you stop me whenever you want. I talk too much, so I'm not. So, well, for this activity,
I
is
wanted
one
to
of
stop you because your class is going to start, so you will have to stop.
Oh no, they will arrive. Not yet. Not yet. Don't worry. The materials you will see now, it's about one of the projects we have made together. We are doing this kind of works or learning situations all the time. We do one, then we finish, then we do other one. I put them, for example, in the learning situation of they have to be working in a shop or in a cafeteria. So I bring here toys that I have, and I prepare, I surprise a cafeteria or whatever. And firstly, I have put the input, of course, and I have put them the sentences, the pronunciation. We have been working that for some lessons. And then they arrive and I say, okay, you're going to be a waiter, you're going to be a, yeah. And I have some toys representing food and things. So they have to ask, and all the learning situation in a restaurant or in a cafeteria, even complaining, whatever. So they're going to do that in like representing that, and then I record that, and then we watch that later, and we review the grammar structures, the vocabulary, our pronunciation, everything. What's that? I love it. Can you stop that? Hey, please. Thank you. It's a beautiful sound. Okay, so we finish all our learning points. We do everything, every skills, vocabulary, pronunciation, grammar, structures, and all the things they're going to need to face these real situations in life, because for them it's needed. So when learning to vocabulary about shops, for example, we learn comparatives, colors, everything you can imagine, but as well how to be working in a shop, how to be attending, or how to be a customer, client, or how to complain, or how to be someone sniffy that is just minding not the business and just gossiping and everything. So they find it very interesting. And we put that together with some culture of, in this case, I'm teaching Spanish, so I put them with some shopping culture in Spain. But as well, I always ask them for the shopping culture, culture or shopping trendings in their country, right? Consumism, we talk about consumism in the countries, how is it, if they find some differences or they find things similar here, that they live here in Valencia now or in the countries. And it's very interesting because depending on the country, depending on the background, it's very different, the idea of consumism they have about the global situation, so sustainability and everything. So, and in here we try to make like a big agreement. So it's nice, and I think they have fun learning with me. They have fun. I have classes at full, meaning I should have about 20, 24 students, and normally I have 30. Sometimes we are standing, and I have to do a lot of moving activities, and we have to be all the time in movement because we don't fit in the class. We are too much people, so we don't have bigger classes. So what we do is just activities where we are putting groups and, I don't know, like moving all the time, which is quite good as well for the different styles of learning. So this could be the kind of static style of learning. So it's good for everyone. And we listen to a lot of different accents, which I think is very important. From every country, I let them just feel free to speak in the language they are learning. This case is Spanish, but when they speak in English, through them, among them, to understand things that they don't understand from me, nor from my pictures, nor from the objects I bring, they make little groups and they explain ones to the others. So they do like co-teaching, something like that, which is fantastic. And I'm just going group by group, just trying to understand them and explain them better. But they just teach ones to the others, and this cooperation, this cooperative way of working is as well fantastic. And then they use English for the cooperative work. They're using English, and when they use English, it's incredible to listen to their different accents. Wow, from here I could do many different words. I have so much ideas. I'm going to make them work a lot this year. So it's nice. They are arriving, but don't worry because I told them to be here at 10. So if you want to see a bit what we've done in this work, it is just using our different languages in our multicultural class, we work about some love tales, the classical history, the classical drama of Romeo and Juliet, and in some other countries, which kind of story they had similar to that one, or which kind of adaptation. And so you have some different countries with a brief story about that. And some of them recorded the story for you to listen their voices. So, but they are in Spanish, as my class is about Spanish, but with their accents, you mean. Of course, I let them pronounce with their accents. Of course, this is part of their richness, so of course. And I only correct or check mistakes when they are grammatically really very, very incorrect, or they impede understanding. If not, I let them speak and talk and read. And afterwards, I tell them what a possibility or option would be more natural, easier for a Spanish learner to understand. But I let them to maintain their accents and their vocabulary and everything, as long as communication is effective, always. I am not trying to I don't know, colonize their language with my Spanish. That's not the way. So no, we are like an enormous, I don't know, rainbow with our accents and our backgrounds. And for that reason, I think I've got my classes full, because they really enjoy learning that way. They feel free. So, and in the end, they have the level, right? In the end, they know vocabulary and everything. It costs to the teacher a bit more to engage everything, but it's absolutely worthy. Right? It's absolutely worthy. This is the best job in the world. This is the best thing in the world you can do. So, yeah. So, if you go passing a bit, this is just a presentation. Let me see if you can see. Can you? Yeah. Okay, so then you've got one from Persia, for example, which is Iran. Nowadays, that's Iran. And we've got it in Spanish, it's like a brief resume, very, very brief, 4 lines, related to the sustainable development goals, because we're always trying to do this, to be in the mood, in what it's actually the educative tendency and stuff, which is what we have to be in. And then we have it in English, because it's the line that we use for helping us in classes from time to time, and in their own language. So in this case, I think I don't have the audio. But if you go to some others, I've got audios in Chinese. Maybe you can, exactly. Well, this Tristan and Isolde, it's Celtic, it's Celtic. It's from Ireland, I think. So it's just the English part. And we've got it recorded if you want to play it, but it's just someone speaking in English with this accent that I was talking about. Okay, this is from India. Again, we've got I don't have it in English in this case, because they would felt free to do it, and they prefer to do it in Spanish, which is our class, and then their languages. So, which I can't, I mean, I'm not able to say it, right? But I think it was quite interesting. Okay, let's go. Okay, this is West Side Story. Morning, this is West Side Story. Digo, buenos días. This is West Side Story, which is an adaptation. They felt very interested when we work about this, because it was the idea of one of my students. And then I just said, yes, of course, West Side Story, it is Romeo and Juliet in a modern way, adapted to musicals and so. Why not using as well media like television or theater, or yes, entertaining world, not only literature is books. So for seeing this story about love amongst classes and amongst different people, and it is exactly the story of Romeo and Juliet, but bringing it to modern and to United States. So they find it super interesting because they knew, but they never thought about it up to we made the class, and they were super interested. We have the recording, but because everyone wanted to record this one, I don't know. And some of the class, more from southern countries like Ukraine and Russia, they didn't know this West Side Story, but after we talk about it, they just made me promise that we were going to watch it sometime at class. So if I find the opportunity, I will bring them all to watch the West Side Story. I don't know if here or Madrid or whatever. I don't know how I'm going to do it because I said yes, but I don't know how. So okay. So we can find love stories everywhere. Okay, this is a very beautiful story. As we don't have many time, but later, if you've got some time, as you and I are going to have it, right, you can share it with all the students, and just they have to play here where is the symbol, right? And you know, that's one of my Chinese students talking about this. It's a very beautiful story, and it's in Chinese, downward, but they read it in Spanish with their accent, right? I think it's one of the most beautiful stories we have in here. One of the most. So we continue. Then we come to, yes, in Japan, okay? This one is quite similar. Sacrifice. In Japan, you know, everything, if they cannot do things, they sacrifice. So sacrifice and family, social rules and everything, which is quite similar to the next one, which is going to be, I think it's Russia, the next one. Exactly, it's the Russian adaptation from Romeo and Juliet, which is Katia and Grigori. You've got it there as well to listen to it later if you want. And you've got in Russian written down. I had to have a lot of help for my students because I just didn't know how to do that, but they did it for me, so great. We've been doing this all together. It's been a nice work. What else we're writing to the this one is from Ukraine. Okay, Maria Amazili, and it's from Ukraine, as well as kind of Romeo and Juliet. But this is about the Cossacks soldiers, and in the end, it's always tragedy, and it doesn't finish. The thing is not going to be a love story with a good ending, but it's what it is. So it's tragic. This is from Ukraine. And you have it as well, the voice, if you want to listen later. Of course, who is reading the Ukraine one, it's an Ukrainian person. The one who read the Russian, it's a Russian person. So although they read it in Spanish, the accent is total. Hola, buenos días. The accent is total. So it's very interesting. If we come a bit more, because I want to arrive to the end. Okay, this one's Wrestling of the Familia. This is exactly. Well, in conclusion, these stories offer window to values and challenges. Please. Okay. Digo, gracias, porfa. That it's powerful, right? As we use it for breaking down these cultural and social barriers, all these biased ideas that we've got about how love must be in different countries. Those countries are not only what we have been listening about them, they've got a lot more things in culture, in story, in love, and how they live, the rules, the values. So we can find similarities which engage all of us in a more justice and more just, more equitative, and more inclusive, and more normal for nowadays, including rules of gender or those ideas. We've got a lot of ideas which are wrong from those countries that we have been told. So knowing people from them, and these stories, we use them for just see how they've been taught as well. So we can change the patterns and we can just get to a powerful, new, and more equal and inclusive society working together through language, which is the most powerful language and culture, multi-language and multicultural. Multilingualism and multicultural, these are the most powerful tools we have. And the moment you enter in this world, the moment you don't want to go out. So, well, later you've got some other stories, which I beg you not to, if you have later time to, well, it's not the way you can read them, but you've got the voice for everyone. My students wrote these stories. They invented or they found them, these stories. So you've got the stories, the authors are there, and you've got the audios from there. They're very proud on how they read in Spanish. So it's incredible. And that's what I can share by today. But whenever you have any question about anything, you just ask me.